Hi everyone, this is the rest of the 6-3B notes. So we're going to go ahead and continue with these. We're not going to do all of the problems, so you can finish what you can from the video, and then your assignment is actually going to be to watch the next video in Schoology, which is over 6-4 notes. So we're going to finish this up today, and then you're going to move on to 6-4 notes. So remember, in order to find a least common denominator for my problem, I have to factor the denominator that's there. And so right now the denominator in the first rational expression is x plus 2, and the denominator in the second rational expression is x minus 2. If you've already done this problem in class, you are of course welcome to skip ahead in the video until we get to number 4. Remember that factors are things that are multiplied, so neither x nor 2 nor negative 2 are considered factors. The factors are x plus 2 and x minus 2. There's nothing in common in these denominators, so in order to find a least common denominator, you need each piece. So you need an x plus 2 and you need an x minus 2. So our goal is going to get x plus 2 times x minus 2 to be the new denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite. I rewrote my problem, giving myself a little bit of extra space. I noticed that in my first rational expression, x plus 2 is in the denominator. In order to make it look like this, I need to multiply by an x minus 2. So what I multiply by on the bottom, I also multiply by on the top. And then in the second rational expression, I have x minus 2 in the denominator. In order for it to look like this, I need to put an x plus 2 in there. So whatever I multiply by on the bottom, I also multiply by on the top. So now I have a common denominator. My common denominator is x plus 2 times x minus 2. The order does not matter. When you multiply things in any order, it doesn't change your answer. And my numerator, I need to distribute. So 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. And then I need to subtract 8 times x. And I also need to subtract 8 times 2, which is 16. Remember that I am subtracting each of those pieces, which is why this is a minus sign. So whenever I simplify, I do need to combine my like terms. My denominator has not changed. It's still that least common denominator that we decided on. But my numerator, I need to combine the like terms. So 3x minus 8x is negative 5x. And negative 6 minus 16 is negative 22. And there is my final answer. So I'm going to move along to number 4, remembering that I only care right now about the denominators. My first rational expression has an x minus 1 as the factor, and it's the only factor. My second rational expression has 2x plus 1 as a factor, and it is, again, the only factor. I can't simplify that anymore because it doesn't have a squared. So my least common denominator needs all the pieces. So not only do I need an x minus 1, but I also need a 2x plus 1. So I'm going to rewrite my expression. And here I give myself a little bit of space. In order for x minus 1 to look like this, I need to multiply by a 2x plus 1 because that's missing. What I multiply by on the bottom, I also multiply by on the top. In order for this rational expression to look like this in the denominator, I need an x minus 1, that's missing. So what I multiply by on the bottom, I'm going to multiply by on the top. So now I have a common denominator. My common denominator is x minus 1 times 2x plus 1. But my numerator, I actually need to multiply. You can do this with box or you can do this with FOIL. Either way is fine. I'm going to go ahead and do this with FOIL. X times 2x is 2x squared. X times 1 is x. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times 1 is 2. And I need to add what I get whenever I FOIL these two factors. So x times x is x squared. x times negative 1 is minus x. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And negative 3 times negative 1 is plus 3. And this, of course, needs to be simplified a little bit more. There's way too many terms up in the top, so I'm going to keep my denominator of x minus 1 times 2x plus 1, and now I'm going to combine my like terms. So for my x squared terms, I have 2x squareds plus 1x squared. I have 1x plus 4x, that's 5x. 5x minus 1x is 4x's, and 4x's minus 3x's is only 1x. And for my constants, I have 2 plus 3. So there is my final answer. Moving on to number 5. Number 5, I see that x squared minus 9 is a difference of 2 perfect squares. So I'm going to break this up a little bit. This is x plus 3 times x minus 3. And then x minus 3 is already factored as much as it can be. So my least common denominator is going to have one of everything. We have x minus 3 in both of the denominators, but x plus 3 is not common to both of them, so that's going to need to be in here too. I notice, though, that x minus 3 times x plus 3 is already what I have here, so I'm not going to need to change this first rational expression. It's going to remain as 8x over x plus 3 times x minus 3. Let me go ahead and adjust this focus a little bit for the bottom one. There we go. So my second rational expression is going to change. Right now it's x minus 7 over x minus 3. But in order to become the least common denominator, that x minus 3 needs an x plus 3 with it. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by x plus 3 and the top by x plus 3. So in order to combine these, my denominator is still the least common denominator. My 8x is still here, and I'm adding to it what I get when I FOIL these two binomials. So x times x, x times 3, negative 7 times x, and negative 7 times 3. Lengthen that a little bit. So to combine my like terms, I have an x squared. I have 8x plus 3x, which is 11x. 11x minus 7x is 4x. And then my constant is minus 21. It's actually tempting to stop here, but I noticed that because I have this trinomial up here, it would be a good idea for me to try, at least in my head, to see if I can factor. And so I'm going to move my camera down a little bit so that you can see what's happening. So I need two numbers that multiply to be negative 21, but they also need to add to be 4. And those two numbers, if you think about it, are 7 and negative 3. So the numerator becomes x plus 7 and x minus 3. And you already had an x minus 3 on the bottom and an x plus 3 on the bottom. So from the previous sets of notes, if you're trying to simplify and you see the same thing, common factors on the top and on the bottom, you can cancel them out. So your answer is x plus 7 over x plus 3. So for number 7, so we're going to skip forward to number 7. We're going to look at 7 and 8, and then we're going to move on to the next set of notes. For number 7, what I'd like for you to do is pause the video and try to factor the denominator and come up with the least common denominator. So pause the video and then check back. So check your answer with mine for number 7. And I know it's not the final answer, but check your factored denominators. So this trinomial becomes x minus 2 times x minus 3. And this binomial is a difference of two squares. So we have x plus 2 times x minus 2. X minus 2 is something that both of these denominators share, but x minus 3 and x plus 2 are two that they don't share. So the least common denominator needs all the pieces. So in order to get all of the pieces, I need to think to myself, what is missing here? Well, out of all of these, the thing that's missing was the x minus 2 here. So what I'm going to do is multiply both the top and the bottom by x minus 2. Or sorry, x plus 2. That's what's missing. So I have, if I distribute 3x plus 6 on top, and x minus 2 times x minus 3 times x plus 2 on the bottom. And I need to add to that my second rational expression. Now I need to think to myself again, what's missing? I've got an x plus 2 and an x minus 2, so I've got these two things, but I'm missing x minus 3. So if I multiply that in the denominator, I need to also multiply it in the numerator. And if I distribute 2 times x is 2x, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, with my least common denominator. So now I need to add my numerators together. My denominator remains the same, so my denominator is still that least common denominator. But my numerator, I need to add the like terms. So 5x plus 2x. Oh my goodness, sorry. 3x plus 2x is 5x. And 6 plus negative 6 is just 0. So this is my final answer. Now for the last one, I'd like for you to try number 8 on your own. Pause the video, try it on your own, and then click back and check your work. I'm not going to explain number 8, but I will show you all of the work, and I'll show you the answer. So pause the video and try number 8. So check your work with kind of what appears on the screen. The least common denominator should be x minus 1 times x minus 1 times x plus 2. So here you multiply and here you multiply. 1 times x plus 2 is just x plus 2. Here I FOILed. The next step, I took x minus 2 and I subtracted the whole polynomial over here, which meant that I had to distribute. And this negative x plus x kind of canceled out. So I got my numerator and I reorganized them in descending order. So now you have enough information to kind of work on your homework, but that doesn't need to be done at home. There is no quiz today in class. There will be a quiz tomorrow though. You need to close this video, go back into Schoology, and open up the video that's over 6-4 notes. So we're going to go ahead and work on those notes right now. You should have gotten those notes from the substitute.